They're going very well. I'll tell you, I think Tsinghua when we first came up with this idea, I knew from the beginning that we had no chance of beating the Chinese team. But I said, we still have to come, even though we will lose every match. Yeah. And Tsinghua came back and said, no, we have a different idea. Let's have an American and a Chinese student on the same side on each team.
That's a great idea.
It's a brilliant idea. So it's not about America versus China. It's about everybody playing together. And it's such a great approach. Well, we've been thrilled. We've been overwhelmed with the Chinese hospitality. We've been so impressed. We've had so many experiences that our students couldn't even dream of before. For example, last night, the Foreign Ministry invited us to join Minister Wang Yi at the Jiayutai State House to celebrate the 45th anniversary of US-Chinese relations. We had a chance to visit the Forbidden City, which I've never been to before. It was just an amazing place. We're going to the Great Wall tomorrow. And then we're having classes to learn about Chinese culture, to learn about foreign relations between the United States and China, learn about cultural differences and how we can overcome them. So it's been a really rich, rewarding experience.
Well, you've never been to the Forbidden City or the Great Wall, but have you been in Beijing ever before this?
I have. So I used to be an American diplomat. I did that for 36 years before I joined the University of Virginia 5 years ago. And so I came to Beijing a few times on diplomatic business. I used to work on I was the U.S. implementer of the Iran nuclear deal, with which Beijing, the People's Republic of China, was a very important partner, and had a very constructive relationship with my Chinese counterparts. And then this is my third time working for the university to come here. Well, it's just the changes have been historic and amazing. The very first time I came to China was in April of 1999, almost 25 years ago. I was on the delegation of then Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. And in those days, I'll never forget, riding in from the airport, there were very few cars on the street. It was bicycles, and very, very few cars. And today, driving around Beijing, it's a big city with lots of traffic and all of the challenges that come with a big, well-developed urban environment. But the experience of China being raised out of poverty to be so developed in such a gleaming, busy and apparently prosperous capital is very impressive.
Yeah, of course, in this occasion, we can't go without mentioning the ping-pong diplomacy that was over 50 years ago that broke the ice between U.S. and China back then. So how did you come up with this idea of having this ping-pong delegation visiting China this time? And what do you expect to achieve?
So we have, before the pandemic, had students who would regularly come to study in China. It's Chinese language, the Chinese history, architecture. We had a lot of architecture students come here. And the pandemic stopped all of that. So we haven't had students here for 4 years now. And that, I think, is unacceptable. China and the United States are the two biggest, most powerful, most important countries on Earth. And for us to succeed together, we each have to understand each other. And you can't understand each other just by reading the newspaper or reading in books. You have to go to the place. And students in the United States have been worried about coming to China after the pandemic. There are probably different reasons. There may be political worries. When relations are not very good at a diplomatic level, maybe people worry that it's not safe to go there. So I've been thinking, how do we get beyond that? Because that's not healthy. It's not good. And as a former diplomat, I remembered, 50 years ago, when Americans and Chinese weren't talking to each other, what changed that? What changed it was ping pong diplomacy. So I thought, let's try that again. So I suggested the idea to my Chinese partners here, and they were very enthusiastic about willing to invite us. I went back to our university, and our students were also very excited about the idea. So that's how it started, and so far it's been a great success. Our students are really learning a lot and having fun.
Brilliant. I mean, the matches, well, calling them matches are ongoing, but as you mentioned, this is not really a match between UVA and Tsinghua University anymore. It's actually a collaboration, right?
That's right. Each doubles team has one UVA student and one Tsinghua student. So that means our people will be winning together, they'll be losing together. And it's a brilliant idea. I really commend Tsinghua University for suggesting that, because it will make it a much more meaningful experience. And it's a good symbol for what our country should be experiencing together.
Absolutely. I think the symbolic meaning is even more important, right? We're all in this together.
That's
we
right.
can collaborate instead of working against each other.
That's right.
And we've also noticed that UVA has started a course recently which is called Game Change, bridging the US-China divide through sport. How do we expect to do that in this course? And how many students are taking part? What do we teach them in this?
So we have 12 students, and of course they're going to be playing ping pong, and they're doing that right now. But we built the exhibition ping pong matches, one here in Beijing and the other in Shanghai next week, into a broader academic course that has a number of different elements to it. We want our students to get a better understanding of Chinese history and Chinese culture. And so as part of the course, these 2 weeks, we visited the Forbidden City yesterday. It was just an amazing experience. We will be visiting the Great Wall tomorrow. None of our students have ever been to the Great Wall. I've never been to the Great Wall. I'm very excited to go. We're also having a class on what are the cultural differences between the United States and China that can make it more challenging sometimes to come to an agreement. You know, when people disagree, they often disagree for good reasons, but sometimes they disagree because they don't understand each other very well. Yeah. And so we're going to have a class with some Chinese students who've lived in the United States and some Americans who have studied here in China. And so we'll bring all of them together and ask them, what was the most surprising thing you learned about living in the other culture? What was the biggest challenge? How did you overcome that challenge? What did you find in common between American and Chinese people? So I think that will get people thinking about the role of cultural differences in managing human communication. We'll also have a class on the foreign policy issues between the United States and China to get a better understanding about what are the sources of disagreement on such issues as Taiwan, human rights, South China Sea, economic trade issues that exist between the United States and China. So our students get a better understanding of what are the challenges, but also maybe what are some ideas for fixing them constructively. And along the way, they'll be playing ping pong and having fun. So we only have 2 weeks, but I think it's going to have a big impact on our students.
Well, you did say that to understand different cultures, different countries, you have to be there personally to see it with your own eyes. And of course, there are misunderstandings and differences on political levels. But how important do you think such people-to-people level exchanges will have an impact on the relationships between the two countries?
Well, I think it's very important because if you don't communicate on a human level, it's going to be very hard to solve problems. After all, we're all human beings, Americans, Chinese, and that alone means we have a lot in common for us to survive. We need to breathe, we need to eat, we need to feel secure. And I think if you're not communicating on a human level, you sometimes forget that. You start believing the headlines, you start thinking about just political differences, and you can forget about what we have in common. And I think what attracts me to the whole idea of ping pong diplomacy, this all started, it's a very interesting story. The American team was playing in Japan, the Chinese team was there. The American captain missed the bus. He came out to join his team to go back to the hotel, and it was gone. And the only bus remaining was the Chinese team bus. And he asked, "Can I get a ride with you?" And the Chinese, I think, were a little surprised at first, but they said, "Okay, come on." And the rest is history. It resulted a day or two later, an invitation for the team to come here to China. And I think it's a good symbol. We're all on the same bus, right? Americans and Chinese, we're all on the same bus, and we're in this together. And having these kind of people-to-people exchanges helps remind us of that. You know, we have 300,000 Chinese students studying in the United States. We have about 1,000 at UVA. And yes, absolutely, living in the country, it enables you to see behind the headlines, behind the news stories, and to experience it for yourself. So I think that's the most important thing about this experience. And my hope is that already in the age of social media, all of our students are already posting their experiences. They're doing a daily blog on our university website. And I know it's going to inspire more people to want to come to China.
Yeah, and I was about to ask you, do you think it's possible to make such an event, or maybe a similar event, a regular event in the future, that we can have more of these things?
I really hope so. Let's see how this goes. We're about at the halfway point of our trip, but so far it's been very successful. And I think if this success continues, I definitely want to do this again. So maybe we'll do ping pong again, but I know there are other sports that are very popular in the United States together. Basketball, I know the NBA is very popular here in China. So I would very much like to do this on a regular basis.
I'm just really glad to hear that you and the students have enjoyed the trip, enjoying the Great Wall, enjoy Shanghai, and I really do hope that this can be a constant, regular event in the future.
Thank you. That's my hope.